If you're eating dinner after 7 p.m., stop right now. This habit is why your A1C won't budge, no matter how perfect you eat. Your last meal controls 12 straight hours of blood sugar exposure. That's half your day where glucose is bathing your cells in damage or giving them a chance to heal. Most diabetic seniors eat this meal at the wrong time with the wrong foods. This is why their morning fasting glucose stays high and their A1C creeps up every 3 months. I am Dr. Leonard Javier. I'll show you the meal structure clinical trials prove can drop your A1C. That's the same reduction most medications give you, but from one meal. I'll rank the 4 components you must include. Starting with number 4 and working up to number 1, the ingredient that cuts post-meal glucose spikes by 37%. But first, you need to understand what's really happening inside your bloodstream overnight while you sleep. Your A1C isn't a snapshot like a fingerstick test. It measures how much glucose has been sticking to your red blood cells. This is over the past 2 to 3 months. The more hours your blood sugar stays elevated, the higher your A1C climbs. And here's the problem. The longest uninterrupted stretch of elevated blood sugar happens overnight. You eat dinner around 6 or 7 p.m., then you don't eat again for 12 to 14 hours. That's half your day. If your blood sugar spikes after dinner and stays high all night, you're essentially soaking your red blood cells in glucose. This happens for 12 straight hours every single night. But it gets worse. Your body's ability to handle glucose drops significantly in the evening. Research published in Diabetes Care shows that insulin sensitivity plummets after 6 p.m. and keeps falling until morning. Your pancreas also secretes less insulin at night. And elevated melatonin suppresses insulin release even further. So, you're hitting your body with food at exactly the time it's least equipped to handle it. This is why the composition and timing of your last meal is the most powerful lever you can pull to lower your A1C. Now, let me show you exactly how to build that meal. I'm going to break this down into 4 ranked components. These aren't my opinions. Each one is backed by randomized controlled trials that measured actual A1C changes in diabetic patients. I'm starting with number 4 and working up to number 1, the single most important component. But before I reveal number 4, let me tell you why number 1 is so powerful that most diabetes medications can't even compete with it. I'll get to that in a moment. Component number 4, strategic carbohydrates, if you include them at all. Most diabetics are told to avoid carbs entirely, and I understand why. Potato, rice, pasta, potatoes, all spike blood sugar fast. But here's the truth. If you're going to eat starchy carbs at dinner, they need to be first, the last thing you eat on your plate. Second, in the smallest portion. Third, in their most fiber-intact, lowest glycemic form. That means sweet potato instead of white potato, quinoa or barley instead of white rice, beans and lentils instead of bread. And here's a trick that doubles the benefit. If you cook rice or potatoes, then cool them in the refrigerator overnight and reheat them before eating. You create something called resistant starch. Study in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that cooling rice at 4°C for 24 hours increased resistant starch content. This significantly reduced the glycemic response when people ate it. Here's why this matters. When you cool starchy foods, the starch molecules realign into a crystalline structure that your digestive enzymes can't break down efficiently. This resistant starch acts like fiber. Your body can't digest it quickly, so it doesn't spike blood sugar. Even better, resistant starch feeds the beneficial bacteria in your colon, producing short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. These improve insulin sensitivity throughout your entire body. Honestly, for most people trying to drop their A1C fast, I recommend keeping dinner as low carb as possible. Save your carbohydrate budget for earlier in the day when your insulin sensitivity is higher. If you do include carbs, keep the portion to the size of your fist, not your whole plate. And remember, eat them last after everything else. Now, let's move to number 3. Component number 3, fiber-rich, non-starchy vegetables. This is where most people fail. They think, I'll eat a small salad and some protein. Wrong. Vegetables need to cover at least half your plate, and I'm not talking about corn or peas or carrots. Those are starchy. I'm talking about leafy greens, spinach, kale, arugula, Swiss chard, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. Low glycemic options, zucchini, eggplant, bell peppers, asparagus, green beans. Why does this matter so much? Because fiber forms a gel-like substance in your intestines that traps glucose and slows its absorption. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that people with type 2 diabetes who increased their fiber intake 250 grams per day saw significant improvements in blood sugar control, better than a standard ADA diet. But here's the key. You need to load up on vegetables at dinner, not just add a side salad. Let me explain what happens when you don't eat enough fiber at dinner. Without that gel barrier, glucose molecules rush through your intestinal wall and flood into your bloodstream all at once. Your pancreas has to dump massive amounts of insulin. Over time, your cells become resistant to that insulin signal, which is exactly what makes diabetes worse. But when you eat 2 cups or more of non-starchy vegetables, that fiber slows everything down. Glucose trickles into your bloodstream gradually. Your pancreas releases insulin in steady, manageable amounts. Your cells stay sensitive. Your blood sugar stays stable all night long. The fiber and water content will also fill you up, crowd out higher glycemic foods, and prevent that late-night hunger that drives so many people to the kitchen for a snack. This destroys all the progress you just made. Aim for at least 2 cups of non-starchy vegetables at dinner. More is better. And here's a bonus tip. Raw vegetables have slightly more fiber than cooked ones because cooking breaks down some of the cell walls. So, if you can tolerate raw vegetables, like a big salad with spinach, cucumbers, bell peppers, and tomatoes, that's even better for blood sugar control. Now, let's get to number 2. This is where the magic starts. Component number 2, healthy fats that protect overnight. After vegetables, your second priority is adding healthy fats to your meal. I'm talking about monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, not saturated fats from butter or fatty red meat. Fats do the critical things for overnight blood sugar control. First, like fiber, they slow digestion and prevent glucose spikes. Second, certain fats, especially omega-3 fatty acids, improve insulin sensitivity. This happens at the cellular level. A meta-analysis of 10 randomized controlled trials published in Clinical Nutrition found that omega-3 supplementation significantly reduced fasting glucose and improved insulin resistance in people with type 2 diabetes. Let me explain the mechanism here. Your cell membranes are made up of fatty acids. When you eat healthy fats like omega-3s, they get incorporated into cell membranes. This changes fluidity and structure, making insulin receptors work better. Think of it like oiling a rusty hinge. A stiff hinge means the door doesn't open smoothly. Oil it and it swings freely. Omega-3s do the same for your insulin receptors. They make them more responsive to insulin's signal. Healthy fats trigger hormones like CCK and PY, signaling fullness to your brain. This helps avoid late-night cravings. Here's what to include: extra virgin olive oil drizzled over vegetables, half an avocado, fatty fish like salmon. This overlaps with protein, which is perfect. Add walnuts, almonds, pecans, chia seeds, or ground flaxseed on your salad. Don't go overboard. Fats are calorie-dense. 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, half an avocado, or a small handful of nuts is plenty. And one more thing, timing matters here. If you add fat to your meal after carbohydrates, you won't get the full benefit. Fat needs to be in your stomach before carbs arrive to slow down gastric emptying. Now, let's get to number 1, the most important component. Clinical studies show it cuts post-meal glucose by 37% and insulin by 36%. Component number 1, high-quality protein. Start dinner with 30 to 40 grams of protein, eaten first before anything else. This isn't just advice. This is backed by hard science. A randomized crossover trial published in Diabetes Care showed that when people with type 2 diabetes ate protein and vegetables before carbohydrates, their post-meal glucose was 29% lower, and their insulin levels were 37% lower compared to eating the same foods in a different order. Let that sink in. Same meal, different order, 37% lower insulin. Why does this work? When protein hits your stomach first, it slows gastric emptying. Your stomach literally takes longer to push food into your intestines. This means glucose enters your bloodstream gradually instead of all at once. But there's another mechanism at play here. Protein stimulates a hormone called GLP-1. The same hormone drugs like Uptake are designed to mimic. GLP-1 makes you feel fuller, slows digestion, improves insulin sensitivity, and tells your pancreas to release insulin more efficiently. Natural GLP-1 from protein is different from the drug version. It's released in pulses in the exact amounts your body needs without the side effects like nausea or osteoporosis that some people get from the medications. There's also evidence that eating protein first reduces ghrelin, your hunger hormone, which is why people who eat protein-first meals report feeling satisfied for hours. Here's what to eat. Best protein sources for dinner: wild-caught salmon or fatty fish like mackerel or sardines. These also give you omega-3s. South, pasture-raised chicken or turkey, grass-fed beef in moderation, eggs. If you're eating breakfast for dinner, legumes like lentils or chickpeas for plant-based protein, aim for a palm-sized portion, about 4 to 6 ounces. And remember, eat this first before your vegetables, before your carbs, before anything. Some people ask me, what if I can't eat that much protein in one sitting? Fair question. If you struggle to eat 30 to 40 grams of protein at dinner, start with 20 grams and work your way up over a few weeks. Your stomach will adapt. You can also spread it out slightly. Eat half your protein, then your vegetables, then the rest of your protein, then any carbs. The key is that protein needs to hit your stomach before carbohydrates do. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Let me walk you through what happens inside your body when you start eating this way. Most people focus on the scale or their morning glucose readings, but the real changes are happening at the cellular level. Changes you can't see, but that literally determine whether you reverse your diabetes or let it progress. In the first week of eating this meal structure, your pancreas gets a break. For years, your pancreas has been overworking, trying to pump out enough insulin to handle blood sugar spikes. It's like an engine that's been running in the red zone constantly. Eventually, it starts to fail. But when you eat protein first, add healthy fats, load up on fiber, and minimize carbs at dinner, your pancreas only has to release insulin in small, controlled bursts. Within 7 days, studies show that beta cell function, the cells in your pancreas that make insulin, starts to improve. The cells aren't exhausted anymore. They can respond more efficiently to glucose. You'll notice this as lower fasting glucose in the morning. Most people see a drop of 10 to 20 points in that first week alone, but that's just the beginning. In week 2, something else starts happening. Your inflammatory markers begin to drop. Chronic high blood sugar creates oxidative stress and inflammation throughout your entire body. This inflammation damages the lining of your blood vessels, creates insulin resistance in your muscles and liver, and accelerates aging. But when you stabilize your overnight blood sugar with this meal structure, your body gets 12 hours of repair time instead of 12 hours of damage time. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that just 2 weeks of improved glycemic control significantly reduced markers of inflammation like CRP and IL-6. You'll start feeling this as better energy. You won't wake up feeling foggy or sluggish. Your joints might hurt less. You might notice your mood is more stable. All of this is happening because your body is finally getting the chance to heal instead of constantly fighting inflammation. By week 3, your metabolism starts to shift. Your liver, which has been dumping glucose into your bloodstream all night long to compensate for insulin resistance, starts to quiet down. A process called hepatic glucoeugoneogenesis, where your liver makes new glucose from protein and fat, decreases. Your muscles start pulling glucose out of your blood more efficiently. Insulin sensitivity improves by as much as 20% in some studies. And here's the most important part. Your A1C starts to drop. Remember, A1C measures the average glucose sticking to your red blood cells over 2 to 3 months. Red blood cells live for about 120 days. So every day you keep your blood sugar stable, you're replacing damaged red blood cells with healthy ones. After 3 weeks, about 17% of your red blood cells are brand new and haven't been exposed to high glucose. That's when you start seeing the A1C numbers drop. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't a 3-week fix. This is a lifestyle fix. The changes I just described only stick if you keep eating this way. If you go back to eating high-carb dinners late at night, your pancreas goes back into overdrive. Inflammation comes back and your A1C creeps up again. That's why consistency matters more than perfection. You don't need to eat this exact meal structure 100% of the time. If you hit it 5 or 6 nights per week, you'll still see massive improvements. Now, let me show you what cancels out all these benefits. You can build the perfect meal with all 4 components, but if you make these mistakes, your blood sugar will spike anyway. And these mistakes are so common that I'd estimate 8 out of 10 diabetics are making at least one of them right now. Mistake number 1, drinking juice, soda, or sweet drinks with dinner. This seems obvious, but I see it constantly. People eat a perfect low-glycemic dinner, then wash it down with orange juice or sweet tea or a healthy smoothie. Liquid sugar bypasses all the protective mechanisms we just talked about. It doesn't have to be digested. It goes straight into your bloodstream and spikes glucose within minutes. Even 100% fruit juice with no added sugar is a problem. A study in the BMJ showed that higher consumption of fruit juice was associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, while eating whole fruits had the opposite effect. Why? Because when you drink juice, you're getting all the sugar from multiple fruits without any of the fiber. 1 glass of orange juice contains the sugar from 4 to 5 oranges, but none of the pulp or fiber. Your body doesn't know the difference between orange juice and soda when it comes to blood sugar impact. Stick to water, unsweetened tea, black coffee, or sparkling water with lemon. No exceptions. And if you're thinking, but what about diet soda or zero-calorie drinks? They're better than sugary drinks, but they're not ideal. Some research suggests artificial sweeteners may interfere with gut bacteria and insulin signaling. The safest bet is plain water. Mistake number 2, eating dinner late at night. Remember that circadian rhythm we talked about? Your insulin sensitivity keeps dropping as the evening goes on. A study published in Metabolism found that eating the same meal at 8 p.m. resulted in significantly higher glucose levels compared to eating it at 6 p.m. Here's why. Your body has an internal clock, your circadian rhythm, that controls thousands of metabolic processes. One of those processes is insulin secretion. In the morning, your pancreas is primed to release insulin efficiently. By evening, that system starts shutting down in preparation for sleep. If you eat late, your pancreas can't keep up with the glucose load. On top of that, eating late disrupts your sleep quality. High blood sugar overnight interferes with deep sleep stages. which are critical for tissue repair and hormone regulation. Poor sleep makes insulin resistance worse the next day, creating a vicious cycle. Ideally, finish dinner at least 3 hours before bed. If you go to bed at 10 p.m., finish eating by 7 p.m. at the latest. This gives your body time to process the meal while insulin sensitivity is still somewhat functional, and it prevents that all-night glucose elevation. I know this is hard for people who work late shifts or have unpredictable schedules. If you absolutely can't eat by 7 p.m., then make your late dinner as low carb as possible. Just protein and vegetables. No starchy carbs at all. Mistake number 3, eating fruit for dessert immediately after dinner. A lot of people think, I'll skip cake and have fruit instead. That's better, but timing matters. If you eat fruit, especially high-sugar fruits like grapes, mangoes, or pineapple, right after dinner, you're adding a glucose load on top of whatever carbohydrates you just ate. Your pancreas is already working to manage dinner. Now, you're asking it to handle dessert, too. Fruit contains fructose, which your liver has to process before it can be used for energy. When you eat fruit after a meal, especially a meal with some carbs, your liver gets overwhelmed. It starts converting that excess fructose into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. This not only raises your triglycerides, it also worsens insulin resistance over time. If you want fruit, eat it at least 2 hours after dinner. Or better yet, save it for earlier in the day when your insulin sensitivity is higher. And choose low-glycemic fruits like berries, which have less sugar and more fiber than tropical fruits. Mistake number 4, skipping the post-dinner walk. Here's a free tool that dramatically lowers post-meal blood sugar. A 10 to 15-minute walk right after you finish eating. Randomized crossover study published in Digestion showed that 10-minute walks after each meal reduced 24-hour glucose levels by 12% in people with type 2 diabetes. And the effect was most pronounced when the walk happened within 30 minutes. Why does this work so well? When you walk, your muscles need energy. They pull glucose out of your bloodstream to fuel movement without needing insulin. Your leg muscles contain a special protein called GLUT, for that acts like a glucose transporter. When you contract your muscles by walking, GLUT4 moves to the cell surface and starts pulling glucose inside. This is why walking works even when insulin resistance is severe. You're bypassing the broken insulin system entirely. You don't need to power walk or break a sweat, just a casual stroll around the block. This activates your leg muscles, especially your soleus muscle in your calf, which is one of the most metabolically active muscles in your body. If you can't walk due to mobility issues, even standing up and doing light movement, washing dishes, folding laundry, stretching helps. The key is not sitting or lying down immediately after eating. Stay upright and keep moving for at least 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. If this meal works so well, can I stop taking my diabetes medication? Let me be very clear. Do not stop taking your medication without talking to your doctor first. But here's what the research shows. In clinical trials, people who followed meal structures similar to what I just described were able to reduce their medication dosages over time. Under medical supervision, Study published in Diabetes Therapy found that intensive dietary interventions, including meal timing, macronutrient composition, and food sequencing, allowed 57% of participants to reduce or eliminate at least one diabetes medication within 12 weeks. Some people got off metformin completely. Others were able to lower their insulin doses significantly. But this didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen without careful monitoring. Here's the right way to approach this. Step 1. Start eating this dinner structure consistently for 2 to 4 weeks. Step 2. Track your fasting glucose every morning and log any patterns. Step 3. Bring your glucose logs to your doctor and ask, "My blood sugar is getting better with these dietary changes. Should we consider adjusting my medications?" Step 4. Work with your doctor to slowly reduce medication dosages while continuing to monitor your blood sugar closely. The goal isn't to prove you don't need medication. The goal is to need less medication over time. Some people will always need some level of medication, and that's okay. Type 2 diabetes is a progressive disease for many people, especially those who've had it for years. But even if you can't get off medication entirely, reducing your dosage means fewer side effects, lower costs, and less long-term impact on your liver and kidneys. And in some cases, especially for people who were recently diagnosed or who are pre-diabetic, dietary changes like this can fully reverse the condition. I've seen it happen, but it requires commitment. Here's your simple protocol. You can start tonight.